You want to know what a $1 billion defense system sounds like when it dies? It doesn't scream. It just goes quiet. I was sitting in my truck outside Archite Defense Systems at 10:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, watching through my laptop as Sentinel, 8 years of my life, locked itself down in front of a room full of Pentagon generals. The countdown hit 0, the screens went dark, and Victor Castellano's career imploded in real time. The best part, he had no idea I was watching, or that I'd triggered the whole thing from my parking spot 12 blocks away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to 8:03 a.m., when Victor fired me for refusing to train his influencer niece how to handle national security. That's when this whole thing started, though honestly, I'd been planning for this day since the moment I started building Sentinel. My name's Jake Sullivan, 45 years old, divorced dad, 15 years in Army intelligence before I got into cybersecurity. I'd been senior systems architect at Archite Defense Systems for 8 years, and Sentinel wasn't just my job, it was my life's work. The most advanced cybersecurity platform the government had ever seen, protecting everything from power grids to hospital networks to military bases from every hacker from Beijing to Moscow. That Tuesday morning, I walked into Victor's office thinking we were going to discuss the Pentagon contract renewal. The meeting was supposed to be about expanding Sentinel's capabilities, maybe adding new threat detection algorithms. Instead, I found Victor pacing behind his mahogany desk like a caged tiger, sweating through his $5,000 Italian suit. Jake, sit down. No coffee offer this time. That should have been my first clue something was wrong. We need to talk about operational efficiency, he said. Corporate speak for we're about to screw you over. I'd heard that phrase before in my Army days when some Pentagon desk jockey wanted to replace American soldiers with cheaper contractors. I've brought in a consultant, Victor continued. Someone who understands the global marketplace, the new economy. That's when she walked in. Brianna Castellano, Victor's 24-year-old niece, dressed like she was heading to a fashion shoot instead of a defense contractor's office. I knew her from Instagram, 300,000 followers watching her drink green smoothies and pose with designer handbags in front of Daddy's Ferrari. Uncle Vic says you're going to show me the ropes, she chirped, already pulling out her phone to record. This is so exciting. I'm thinking we could do a whole series, behind the scenes at a defense company. My followers would totally love authentic content like this. I looked at Victor. You want me to train her on Sentinel? Brianna has fresh perspectives, Jake. She graduated summa cum laude in digital communications from USC. The board thinks new blood is exactly what we need to modernize our approach. New blood, right. What they needed was someone who understood that Sentinel wasn't some social media app you could figure out over the weekend. This was 15 layers of military-grade encryption protecting the backbone of American infrastructure. But Victor had dollar signs dancing in his eyes and a board breathing down his neck about cost reduction. I'm swamped with the Pentagon security review, I said. Maybe someone from the training department could help her get oriented. Victor's face went hard. This isn't a request, Jake. It's a direct order. I'd been in the Army long enough to recognize when someone was giving you an order they knew was wrong. The kind of order that gets good soldiers killed because some officer cared more about politics than protecting his people. I can't do that, Victor. The words hung in the air like smoke from a misfired round. Can't or won't. His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that officers use right before they destroy your career. Won't, I said. Sentinel protects critical infrastructure. Power plants, hospitals, military communications. It's not a training exercise for social media consultants. Victor's hand moved to his desk phone intercom. Send security up here, now. Jake Sullivan, he said, his voice cold as a Michigan winter. Your refusal to follow direct orders and adapt to our evolving business model shows you're no longer aligned with company objectives. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security escort, 15 minutes to pack my personal belongings. The whole routine. But here's what Victor didn't know. I'd been planning for this exact scenario since the day I started building Sentinel. See, when my ex-wife Sarah got breast cancer 5 years back, the medical bills nearly wiped us out. That's when I set up Sullivan Technologies, LLC with my mom, Dorothy, as the primary stakeholder. Every patent, every piece of core architecture, every critical component that made Sentinel actually work was filed under that LLC, not Archite. Perfectly legal, perfectly planned, and about to become Victor's worst nightmare. Rick Torres and Dale Murphy walked me down to my office. Two good guys who'd both served overseas and knew this whole situation stunk. In the elevator, I filled them in on what was really happening. "They're selling us out, boys," I said quietly. "Victor's got meetings scheduled with Chinese investors next week. Wants to license Sentinel technology to whoever writes the biggest check." Rick's jaw tightened. He'd lost 3 buddies to Chinese cyber attacks during his deployment in Afghanistan. Dale just shook his head and muttered something under his breath about corporate traitors. My office looked exactly the same as it had 2 hours earlier when I'd been a respected senior architect instead of escorted security risk. Pictures of Tyler at his baseball games lined my desk. Him sliding into home plate at last month's regional championship, him getting his MVP trophy, both of us at a Rangers game last summer. There was my old unit photo from Kandahar, the original Sentinel development team working 20-hour days in that converted warehouse we'd rented, and my coffee mug that Tyler had given me for Father's Day. World's okayest dad. 15 minutes to pack up 8 years of my professional life. I grabbed the personal stuff first. Photos, the mug, that small American flag Tyler had made me in 3rd grade. But what I really needed was already in my jacket pocket. A USB drive that looked like any other storage device but contained something Victor had never bothered to investigate. That drive held the original patent filings, the licensing agreements, and most importantly, the administrative keys to Sentinel's deepest security protocols. Level 17, I called it. My insurance policy. "Don't take any company property," Brianna announced from my doorway, still recording with her phone like this was all some reality show episode. "Uncle Vic said you people always try to steal stuff when you get fired." You people. Like I was some kind of criminal instead of the guy who'd spent 8 years keeping her comfortable lifestyle safe from the people who wanted to destroy everything she took for granted. "Everything I need is right here," I said, patting my jacket pocket where the USB drive sat next to my truck keys. The walk to the elevator felt like a funeral march. Rick and Dale flanked me like honor guards, both of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. As the elevator doors closed, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my core team. "Storm incoming. Batten down the hatches. Watch the 10 a.m. demo real careful." Kelly Rodriguez, my lead developer and probably the smartest programmer I'd ever worked with, texted back immediately. "What did you do, Jake?" "Nothing yet, but they're about to find out what happens when you mess with American defense infrastructure." My F-150 had never felt more like a mobile command center. I fired up my laptop right there in the Archite parking garage and logged into Sentinel's administrative interface. Not through the company network, but through the back channels I'd built into the system from day one. The screen came to life with a simple message. "Welcome, System Architect. All systems operational. Security level 17, armed and ready. Level 17. While Victor and his board had been celebrating each new government contract I'd delivered, I'd been quietly building something they didn't even know existed. A dead man switch wired directly into Sentinel's heart. The logic was elegant in its simplicity. If the primary system architect's employment status changed to terminated without proper security clearance transfer protocols, Sentinel would automatically lock down everything. No access, no demonstrations, no billion-dollar contracts until the ownership dispute got resolved through proper legal channels. I checked my watch. 8:47 a.m. Victor's big Pentagon demonstration was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp. He'd have a conference room full of generals and defense contractors watching him show off technology he thought belonged to him. Time to teach him the difference between licensing something and owning it. I activated the protocol with a single keystroke. Sentinel began its countdown. 1 hour, 13 minutes, 0 seconds, and ticking down steadily. 73 minutes until Victor's world came apart at the seams. My phone buzzed. Tyler, texting from his morning break between classes. "Dad, saw some weird stuff online about your company trending." "Everything cool?" I smiled as I typed back, "Everything's better than cool, son. Your old man just reminded some people why they shouldn't mess with guys who actually know how to build things." "Haha, awesome. Can't wait to hear the story." Gotta get to chemistry class. That kid. 15 years old, straight A student, starting pitcher on his high school team, and smart enough to probably run circles around half the executives at Archite. I was doing this as much for his future as anything else. I drove downtown to Warren Pierce's law office. Warren had handled the Sullivan Technologies LLC paperwork years ago, and he'd been waiting for this phone call ever since. "Jake," he said as his secretary showed me into his corner office, "I heard about your employment status change. Ready to discuss your options?" Through his floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Archite building 15 blocks away. Up on the 35th floor, Victor was probably making final preparations for his demo, completely unaware that in exactly 1 hour and 12 minutes, His billion-dollar defense contract was going to explode like an IED in downtown Baghdad. Let's talk about what happens when that countdown hits zero, I said. At exactly 10 a.m., the Archite conference room had been transformed into what looked like a military command center. 3 massive screens displayed Sentinel's interface in high-definition glory, while the company's remaining engineers stood ready at support stations. The Pentagon evaluation team sat around the polished conference table, 4 generals, 6 defense contractors, and enough combined authority to control more firepower than most small countries. Victor stood at the head of the table, confident as a poker player holding 4 aces. Brianna sat beside him with her tablet, live streaming the whole thing to her followers with captions like, "Taking Daddy's company to the next level. #DefenseTech, #GirlBoss." "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began, his practice presentation voice echoing off the conference room walls, "what you're about to see isn't just cybersecurity software. It's the future of American defense infrastructure, streamlined for the global marketplace." He nodded to the demonstration engineer, some kid fresh out of MIT who'd been hired to replace Brad Thompson after I'd recommended Brad for a raise 6 months ago. The kid started typing commands, and the screens flickered to life with Sentinel's initialization sequence. Everything looked perfect for exactly 12 seconds. Then the first error message appeared: "System Architect Authentication Required." The MIT kid frowned, typing faster. "Just a minor authentication glitch, sir. Let me reset the connection. Access denied. Employment verification failed." "What's the problem?" Victor's voice carried that edge that officers get when their carefully planned battle strategy starts falling apart in real time. "I'm not sure, sir. The system is requesting architect-level credentials that don't seem to exist in our current database." The screens flashed red. A bigger message appeared: "Security lockdown initiated. Time remaining 0 hours, 47 minutes, 32 seconds. Contact system administrator for resolution." The Pentagon team exchanged those looks that senior military officers perfect over decades of dealing with contractors who overpromise and underdeliver. General Patricia Hayes, who'd been evaluating defense systems since before Victor got out of business school, leaned forward with the expression of someone who'd just watched a $1 million missile miss its target by 3 miles. "Mr. Castellano," she said in that steel-trap voice that had probably terrified junior officers for the past 20 years, "is there a problem with your system?" "No problem at all, General Hayes. Just a routine security protocol that will have resolved momentarily." Victor turned to Glenn Hoffman, the guy they'd promoted to CTO about 30 seconds after my security escort ended. "Fix this, now." Glenn's fingers flew across his keyboard, sweat beading on his forehead like he was trying to defuse an actual bomb. "Sir, I can't access the core systems. There's something here about security level 17, but I've never seen that protocol before." "Level 17? What the hell is level 17? Nobody in that room knew the answer, which was exactly the point. The countdown kept ticking. 0 hours, 43 minutes, 17 seconds. 004316, 004315. "Get Jake Sullivan on the phone," Victor barked at his assistant. "Sir, he was terminated this morning per your direct orders." "I don't care if he was terminated. Get him on the line anyway." The call went straight to my voicemail. The professional recording I'd set up specifically for this moment. "You've reached Jake Sullivan. I'm currently unavailable, but if this is regarding Sentinel system architecture, please consult your existing licensing agreements and employment contracts. Thanks for calling, and have a great day." General Hayes stood up slowly, gathering her materials with the deliberate movements of someone who'd just wasted 3 hours of her valuable time. "Mr. Castellano, it appears you have significant internal issues that need resolution. We'll need to postpone this demonstration indefinitely." "Wait, please, General. This is just a minor technical issue that we can resolve in minutes." "Minor?" The general's voice could have frozen fire. "Your core defense system is completely inaccessible during a $1 billion contract evaluation. Your marketing representative is live streaming our classified discussion to social media. And apparently the only person who can fix this crisis is someone you fired 3 hours ago." She headed for the door, her team following like a well-disciplined unit retreating from a compromised position. "We'll be in touch." "Maybe." The Pentagon team filed out in crisp formation, leaving behind a conference room that felt like a tomb. The countdown hit 0 hours, 15 minutes, and Brianna's live stream was capturing every second of the disaster for her hundreds of thousands of followers. "Uncle Vic," she whined, finally lowering her phone as the magnitude of the situation started penetrating her social media bubble. Like, can't we just hire him back or something? Victor turned on her with the kind of fury that would have made a drill sergeant proud. "Get out, now, and turn that damn phone off." She fled the room, her designer heels clicking rapidly down the hallway, but the damage was already done. Her live stream had broadcast Arkite's complete humiliation to the world. The hashtag #DefenseFail was trending within minutes. When the countdown finally reached 0, all 3 screens went dark simultaneously. Then a single message appeared in bold white letters: Sentinel system in protective mode. All access revoked. For licensing inquiries, please contact Sullivan Technologies, LLC. Authorized Representative Dorothy Sullivan. In the span of 2 hours, Victor Castellano had lost everything. The Pentagon contract was dead. Arkite's stock price was in free fall as news of the failed demonstration spread through defense industry circles. And Sentinel, the crown jewel technology that justified the company's entire valuation, was locked behind digital walls that only I controlled. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree with missed calls from Arkite's legal team. Warren Pierce texted me from his office. 15 attempts to reach you in the past hour. Should I return their calls? Let them sweat until after lunch, I texted back. I'm busy. But the real entertainment was just getting started. My laptop showed 37 attempts to hack into Sentinel in the past 2 hours. IP addresses from all over the world: Romania, North Korea, Russia, even a couple from somewhere in Belarus. Victor had apparently gone straight to the dark web, throwing money at hackers like a desperate gambler doubling down on a losing hand. Each attack failed before it could even touch Sentinel's first layer of encryption. They were trying to break down a door that didn't exist. Level 17 wasn't something you could hack. It was a logic gate that made Sentinel forget it existed without proper authorization codes. Around noon, my phone rang. Glenn Hoffman, sounding like a man who'd just watched his career go up in flames. "Jake, this is Glenn. Look, I know what happened this morning was unfortunate, but we need your help here. The entire system is down, and frankly, none of us understand the architecture well enough to troubleshoot it. System's working fine, Glenn. It's just not working for you. Come on, Jake. We both know this is about more than just your termination." You're absolutely right. It's about Victor trying to sell American defense technology to Chinese investors. It's about replacing experienced engineers with social media consultants. It's about putting quarterly profits ahead of protecting the infrastructure that keeps American families safe. There was a long silence on the line. When Glenn spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "The board is willing to negotiate. Full reinstatement, back pay, promotion to vice president of engineering. We can even discuss equity options." "Too late for negotiations, Glenn. I've already got a better offer." That afternoon, I found myself in the executive offices of Durham Strategic Partners, sitting across from Diana Foster in a conference room that overlooked half the city. Diana was the kind of woman who'd been making billion-dollar deals since before the internet existed, and she had the reputation to prove it. "Sullivan," she said, studying me over her coffee cup, "I've had a very interesting day. Richard called me personally after the Arkite demonstration. In 30 years of defense contracting, he said he's never witnessed such a spectacular system failure. Arkite disappointed him." "No," she smiled with the sharpness of a combat knife. "Victor Castellano disappointed him. Arkite is just office space and furniture. What we were interested in was Sentinel technology. And Sentinel, our legal team discovered this morning, was never really Arkite's to sell in the first place." She slid a tablet across the polished table. The screen displayed the original Sullivan Technologies LLC Incorporation documents, with my mother's name prominently listed as primary stakeholder. "Our attorneys have been busy since 11 a.m., Diana continued. "Every patent, every core innovation that makes Sentinel valuable, it all traces back to your LLC. Arkite has been licensing technology they never actually owned. They had full usage rights," I said carefully, "as long as certain employment conditions were maintained. Conditions that were violated at 8:03 this morning." Her smile could have cut glass. "So tell me, Jake, what exactly do you want?" This was the moment I'd been preparing for since I'd walked out of that Arkite building with security guards at my elbows. "I want to build the company Arkite should have been. American-owned, veteran-operated, focused on protecting our country's infrastructure instead of selling it to whoever writes the biggest check. You want control. I want purpose. Sentinel can be more than just profitable. It can be the shield that stands between American families and the people who want to hurt them. But only if it's developed correctly, ethically, with people who understand what's really at stake." Diana leaned forward, her business instincts fully engaged. Durham Strategic was prepared to invest $1.2 billion in acquiring Sentinel from Arkite. That offer is obviously dead, but the technology still exists, and we still want access to it. She slid another document across the table. The signing bonus number at the bottom made me pause and read it twice. That's just the signing bonus, Diana said casually. Your salary as chief architect would be separate, plus comprehensive medical coverage for your entire family. We take care of our people, Jake. I thought about Tyler, about the future I wanted to build for him in a world where cyber warfare was becoming as dangerous as conventional weapons. I thought about my core team at Archite, Kelly, Brad, Amy, brilliant engineers trapped under incompetent leadership. I thought about Victor's arrogance and Brianna's complete ignorance of what she'd been playing with. I have conditions. I wouldn't respect you if you didn't. First, I bring my team. Kelly, Brad, Amy, the people who actually built Sentinel with me. They deserve to see their work succeed under proper leadership. Done. Second, Sentinel's security protocols are non-negotiable. No backdoors for anyone, including government agencies, unless they follow proper legal channels. We protect everyone equally, or we protect no one at all. Agreed. Third, this launch needs to be public. When we announce Sentinel Global Systems, I want the entire defense community to know exactly who built this technology and who tried to steal it from American engineers. Diana actually laughed out loud. Jake, I like your style. Yes, we can definitely arrange that kind of public launch. We spent the next 2 hours working through details, with Diana's legal team joining us via video conference. By 5 p.m., the framework was complete. Sentinel Global Systems would be incorporated by morning. The patents would transfer smoothly from my mother's LLC, and Victor Castellano would wake up tomorrow to discover his company was worth about as much as a used pickup truck with transmission problems. As we wrapped up the meeting, Diana stood and extended her hand, something she apparently didn't do for many people. Jake, I've worked with hundreds of engineers and defense contractors over the years. The brilliant ones who can't execute, the driven ones who lack vision, the political ones who compromise everything for short-term gains. You're something different. What's that? Patient. You waited 5 years for this exact moment, building your safeguards, preparing for every possible contingency. That kind of long-term strategic thinking is exactly what American defense infrastructure needs. Walking out of Durham's offices into the late afternoon sun, I felt lighter than I had in years. This morning I'd been fired in disgrace, escorted out by security like some kind of corporate criminal. This afternoon, I was about to become chief architect of a defense company with unlimited resources and a mission I could actually believe in. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Dad, some kids at school saw that crazy video about your company on TikTok. Are we going to be okay financially? I smiled as I typed back, we're going to be better than okay, son. Your old man just reminded some people why they shouldn't mess with American engineers who know how to build things right the first time. That's so awesome! Mom called and said she saw you on the news. She seemed actually proud, which is weird for her. That made me laugh out loud. Sarah and I might not have worked out as a couple, but she'd always respected my work ethic and integrity. Maybe this would help Tyler see that sometimes standing up for your principles, even when it's difficult, is worth the risk. The news broke at 6:45 p.m., spreading through defense industry circles like wildfire. Archite Defense loses core technology in employment dispute. Pentagon contract terminated after system failure. Former military engineer controls billion-dollar defense platform. I was at home, grilling burgers for Tyler and me, our usual Tuesday night ritual, when Victor's desperate phone call came through. Jake, this is Victor. We need to talk. Now, nothing to discuss, Victor. You made your choice this morning when you decided to fire the guy who built everything you needed to stay in business. The board is willing to discuss terms, reinstatement, equity stake, complete autonomy over technical decisions. Whatever you want. I flipped a burger and listened to the fat sizzle on the grill. I already have what I want, Victor. You've destroyed everything I built over the past decade. No, Victor. You destroyed it yourself the moment you chose cost-cutting over competence, social media consultants over experienced engineers, and foreign investors over American security interests. I just refuse to go down with your sinking ship. This isn't over, Sullivan. Yeah, it is. Sentinel Global Systems launches tomorrow morning. Maybe Brianna can live stream you trying to explain to your board how you lost a billion-dollar defense contract because you fired the only guy who actually understood the technology. I hung up and immediately blocked the number. There would be more desperate calls from board members, investors, maybe even some government officials, but I was done negotiating with people who treated national security like a commodity to be traded for profit. Tyler came out to the deck, still wearing his baseball uniform from after-school practice. "Dad, you seem different tonight. Happier, but also kind of, I don't know, more relaxed?" I looked at my son, 15 years old, growing up in a world where cyber attacks could shut down power grids and foreign governments spent billions trying to steal American technology secrets. A world where his father's work might be all that stood between his future and digital chaos. "I am different, Tyler. This morning I was working for someone who didn't value what I brought to the table, who was willing to compromise everything I'd built for short-term financial gains. Tonight, I work for myself, building something that actually matters for your generation. Is that good for us?" "Yeah, son, that's very good for our family." My phone rang. Mom, calling from her apartment across town. "Jake, honey, I just got off the phone with the strangest man, Victor something, offering me $10 million for some paperwork I signed years ago." "What in the world is going on?" I laughed, really laughed, for the first time since this whole thing started. "What did you tell him, Mom?" "I told him I don't do business with people who fire my son, especially not people who sound that desperate and panicked." Also, his voice was way too high-pitched for a man his age. Very suspicious. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart. Now explain to me exactly how you managed to outsmart all those fancy business people." As I filled her in on the day's events, the firing, the countdown, the failed demonstration, the new company, I felt the last of my tension dissolve. Tomorrow would bring press conferences and contract negotiations, but tonight was just about family and the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. The next morning, I stood in the conference room of Sentinel Global Systems' temporary headquarters, looking out at a crowd of defense reporters, industry analysts, and government officials. Kelly, Brad, and Amy were setting up our demonstration equipment, their excitement obvious after years of working under Arkite's mismanagement. At exactly 10:47 a.m., the same time Victor's demo had collapsed 24 hours earlier, I signed the final incorporation documents that made Sentinel Global Systems official. "Ladies and gentlemen," Diana Foster announced to the assembled crowd, "Sentinel Global Systems represents a new standard in American defense technology. Built by veterans, owned by Americans, dedicated to protecting the critical infrastructure that keeps our country safe and secure." The questions came fast and direct, exactly what I'd expected from experienced defense reporters. "Mr. Sullivan, how do you respond to accusations from Arkite that you sabotaged their system? I spent 8 years building Sentinel to protect American infrastructure from foreign cyber attacks. The only sabotage was Victor Castellano's decision to treat national security technology like a commodity to be sold to whoever offered the most money." "But weren't you an Arkite employee when you filed these patents?" "I was an American citizen protecting intellectual property through completely legal means. Arkite had full licensing access to Sentinel as long as our partnership served American defense interests. They chose to violate that partnership by attempting to transfer control to unqualified personnel." "What about your former colleagues still at Arkite?" I gestured toward Kelly, Brad, and Amy. "The engineers who actually built Sentinel are right here with me. As for those who remain at Arkite, they're welcome to apply for Sentinel licensing like any other defense contractor. We believe in fair and transparent access to American innovation." As the press conference wrapped up, Tyler texted me from school, "Dad, you're trending on Twitter. My history teacher showed the class a news article about you. I'm famous by association." I smiled and typed back, "Just remember, son, sometimes standing up for what's right means taking risks. But if you plan carefully and keep your principles, it usually works out." "Got it. Can we get pizza tonight to celebrate?" "Absolutely. You pick the place." Looking out at the city skyline, I could see the Arkite building in the distance. By now, Victor was probably in yet another emergency board meeting, trying to explain to increasingly angry investors how he'd managed to lose everything in less than 24 hours. The truth is, this was never really about revenge, even though it felt pretty satisfying to watch Victor's arrogance come back to bite him. It was about understanding that in America, innovation belongs to the people who create it. Loyalty has to be earned through respect, and some things like national security are more important than quarterly profit margins. Victor thought he could replace experience with cheap labor, dedication with nepotism, and American engineering with foreign competitors willing to work for less money. He learned the hard way that when you try to screw over someone who spent 15 years protecting this country's infrastructure, you better make sure they don't hold all the keys to everything you need to survive. They fired me at 8:03 a.m. for refusing to compromise American security. By 10:47 a.m. the next day, I owned the very technology their entire company was built on. And that, as Tyler would say, was pretty awesome. Because in America, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something better and showing everyone what real leadership looks like. I was finally working for someone who understood what I was actually worth.